So often we search for it in places where it cannot be found. We chase possessions, relationships, and fleeting pleasures only to discover that the heart still longs for something deeper. Buddhism begins here with the question, true peace within myself. Understanding the path is the very beginning of what it means to step into Buddhism, and it is here that one begins to see life in a new light. The path is not something outside of us, distant lands or hidden texts. It is something that unfolds within the human heart and mind. To understand the path is to understand the very nature of human experience, and Buddhism begins with an honest look at that experience, are the Four Noble Truths, which act as a map to the reality of suffering and the possibility of liberation. The first truth recognizes the reality that life carries dissatisfaction, whether in the form of obvious pain, the fleeting nature of joy, can't change. This is not a pessimistic view, but rather an invitation to see life clearly without covering it with illusions. To walk the path, one must first have the courage to acknowledge this truth. This dissatisfaction, which arises from craving and attachment, human beings are constantly reaching, grasping, and clinging, whether to material possessions, relationships, identities, or even ideas of how life should be. This craving leads to change or slip away, which they inevitably do. To understand the path, one must not only recognize the existence of craving, but also observe it in the daily moments of life, the desire for praise, the fear of blame. This observation is itself a step on the path for when the mind becomes aware. Aware, it also begins to loosen its grip. The third truth offers hope, declaring that freedom from this dissatisfaction is possible. The restless cycle of suffering can be brought to an end. This truth does not point to some distant paradise, but rather to a peace that can be experienced here and now. Liberation is the natural result of a mind that no longer clings. Compassion, understanding this is essential, for it assures the seeker that the path is not a theory or a philosophy to merely admire, but a lived reality that can be attained. The fourth truth outlines the way to reach this liberation. This path is often just the middle way, avoiding extremes of indulgence and denial. It is a guide for ethical living, mental cultivation, and the development of wisdom. It begins with right view, the ability to see life as it truly is. Interdependence. From right view flows right intention, the commitment to let go of harmful desires and compassion and kindness. The path continues with right speech, action, and livelihood that reduces harm to oneself and others. In this way, one's outer life becomes a reflection of inner growth. Beyond conduct, the path also emphasizes the training of the mind, unwholesome states, and nurture wholesome ones. Right mindfulness is the attentive awareness of body, feelings, mind, and phenomena, which allows one to live with clarity and presence in each moment. Mind through meditation, leading to stability, peace, and insight. Together, these steps form not just a moral code or a set of rituals, but a complete way of living that transforms both the inner and outer dimensions of life. That it is gradual and experiential. No one can walk it for another, and it does not demand blind faith. Instead, it invites exploration, reflection, and direct experience. One can begin anywhere by practicing kindness, by becoming more mindful of speech and actions. Each step, no matter how small, is part of the journey. The path is not about instant perfection, but about steady cultivation, just as a seed grows into a tree through patient care. Also, the realizing that it is not separate from daily, it is not confined to temples, books, or meditation cushions. It exists in the way one treats a stranger, in how one responds to difficulties, and in the choices made moment by moment. It is lived through awareness of thoughts and feelings, through compassion toward others, and through letting go of what causes harm. And compassion to guide one's steps in every circumstance. Inner practice over outer labels is one of the most essential aspects of Buddhism, for it reminds us that being a Buddhist is not about what name we call ourselves, what robes we wear, about how we live in the depths of our heart and mind. Many people approach Buddhism thinking that to become a follower means joining a monastery, chanting verses, or identifying with a community. While these can be supportive, they are not the essence. The teachings emphasize that the true shift happens within, in the way we relate to ourselves, to others, and to the world around us. To call oneself a Buddhist without cultivating patience, compassion, without ever lighting it. The inner practice begins with awareness of intention. Every action arises first in the mind, and so the true measure of pride is not in outward appearances, but in the quality of thought and motivation. One may bow, or driven by pride or attachment, they lose their true purpose. Inner practice requires honesty with oneself, a willingness to look inward and see the seeds of greed, anger, and delusion, as well as the seeds of kindness, generosity, and clarity. Gradually let go of the unwholesome is the work of the path, and it happens moment by moment. Kindness is often spoken of as the heart of practice. Memorize sacred verses or master philosophical arguments if they're cold and indifferent. A gentle word, a patient ear, a compassionate act. These carry more weight than rituals performed without sincerity. In this sense, to embody compassion in the simplest moments of life, helping someone in need, forgiving those who cause harm, and extending understanding even when it is difficult are far more transformative than any label. It is learning to let go of attachment to self. Much of suffering arises from clinging to the idea of me and mine, defending this identity, comparing it to others, and seeking to build it up endlessly. Become another layer of ego, making one feel superior or separate. The true path, however, points beyond such clinging. When one practices humility, and that wisdom arises not from pride but from openness, the mind becomes light. Inner practice loosens the grip of the self and allows space for compassion to flow. Mindfulness, too, plays a central role. A follower of the teachings, one must cultivate the ability to be present with each moment, to observe thoughts and emotions without being enslaved by them. This is the heart of meditation, but it also extends into daily life, walking with awareness. The label of Buddhist is empty if mindfulness is absent, for it is mindfulness that awakens clarity and prevents the mind from being swept away by craving or aversion. Patience is another jewel of inner practice. Life brings challenges, One may appear calm or devout, yet true practice is revealed in how one responds to difficulty. The patient mind does not react with anger or bitterness, but meets challenges with equanimity and understanding. Put on for show, it is cultivated through sincere practice over time. Generosity also belongs to the heart of practice. Giving is not measured only in material offerings, but in time, attention, and care. Cling to possessions or recognition, but gives freely. Seeing that what benefits others also nourishes oneself. When generosity arises from the heart, it does not need to be displayed, for its joy is complete in the act itself. Thus, of one's way of being, instead of striving to appear as a Buddhist, one strives to live with honesty, compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. The labels may fade, the rituals may change, the cultural forms may differ from place to place. It is the transformation of the inner world that defines the path, not the outer expressions alone. Meditation and mindfulness are at the heart of Buddhist practice, for they are the tools through which the mind is trained, clarified, and awakened. Deliberate cultivation of stillness and insight, while mindfulness is the attentive presence that permeates every aspect of life. Together, they form the foundation of inner transformation, plus distractions of ordinary existence, and touch the deeper truths of impermanence, suffering, and the possibility of freedom. Without meditation and mindfulness, the teachings remain as words on a page. With them, meditation begins with simple awareness of breath, body, and mind. The breath is not chosen by accident. It is always with us, a natural rhythm that connects body and mind, moment and moment. By resting attention on the breath, and the storm of thoughts begins to settle. This settling is not forced but gently guided, like placing a jar of muddy water on the ground and allowing the particles to sink until clarity emerges. In the same way, to that have an aversion to quiet down so that the mind can reflect reality without distortion. As meditation deepens, mindfulness naturally arises. Mindfulness is the continuous awareness of what is happening in the present moment, or the thoughts and emotions passing through the mind. Instead of being lost in memories of the past or fantasies of the future, mindfulness anchors attention in what is here and now. In this presence, as in pass away, thoughts appear and dissolve, sensations come and go, emotions swell and fade. Through such observation, the truth of impermanence is no longer an abstract idea but a lived experience. And its causes, when sitting quietly, the mind may encounter restlessness, desire, fear, or boredom. Instead of running away or suppressing these states, meditation invites one to observe them with patience and clarity. In doing so, to what is pleasant and resisting what is unpleasant. This insight is transformative, for it shifts the relationship with experience. Rather than being a victim of emotions, one learns to watch them arise and pass like clouds in the sky, the essence of self. Mindfulness extends beyond the meditation cushion into the activities of daily life. Walking, eating, speaking, listening, all become opportunities for practice, for touching the earth. A mindful bite is taken with gratitude for the food and awareness of its taste and nourishment. A mindful word is spoken with care, avoiding harm and cultivating understanding. In this way, turning ordinary actions into expressions of clarity and compassion. Meditation and mindfulness also open the door to compassion. When one sees one's own mind clearly, with its fears, attachments, and struggles, compassion is not forced but flows from the recognition that all beings are bound by the same conditions of impermanence and desire for happiness. Meditation softens the heart, making it less judgmental and more willing to forgive. It's expressed not in vague sentiment but in concrete actions of kindness and care. Another fruit of meditation is concentration, the steadying of the mind. A concentrated mind has power, like a beam of sunlight forced through a lens, to ignite a flame, deeply into the nature of reality, dissolving illusions and revealing truth. This is why meditation is often described as both calming and illuminating. Calm provides stability, while insight provides wisdom. Together, in practice, meditation is not about escaping the world or seeking extraordinary states, but about meeting life directly. It is about being present with each breath, each step, each encounter. Some may experience peace. They are valuable for both reveal the workings of the mind. With persistence, the practice becomes less about achieving something and more about returning to what is already here, the simplicity of awareness itself. The practitioner gradually moves from being entangled in thoughts and emotions to resting in awareness that is open, clear, and compassionate. This awareness is not owned by anyone. It is the natural capacity of the mind when freed from distraction. Self, for it is through awareness that wisdom grows, suffering lessens, and the heart opens. Living the teachings daily is the essence of Buddhism, for the path is not meant to remain in books, sermons, of everyday life. The real measure of practice is not in how much one studies or how long one sits in meditation, but in how one thinks, speaks, and acts in the ordinary flow of existence. Mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom into each interaction, into each choice, into each response to life challenges. It is in this way that Buddhism becomes not only a philosophy or a set of practices, but a living, breathing way of being. Words carry power to heal or to harm, to connect or to divide. Living the teachings means being mindful of language, choosing words that are kind, truthful, and beneficial. It does not mean avoiding difficult conversations, but anger or harshness. Even the tone and intention behind speech matter, for they shape the effect it has on others. In this way, every conversation becomes a chance to practice compassion and awareness in the path. Actions too reflect the depth of practice. How one treats family, strangers, colleagues, and even those considered difficult reveals whether the teachings have truly taken root. Acts of kindness, generosity, a simple gesture, helping someone in need, offering a smile, or showing patience in a moment of frustration carries fragrance of practice far more than ritual alone. In daily life, opportunities for such actions are countless. The teachings into the world. Living the teachings also means living with mindfulness of consumption and livelihood. The food one eats, the work one does, all of these either nurture clarity and compassion or feed greed and distraction. Mindful living is not about rigid rules, but about conscious choices, asking whether what one consumes leads to well-being or to harm. practice when it is pursued with honesty, fairness, and the intention to reduce suffering rather than increase it. In this way, the teachings guide not only inner life but the entire relationship with society and the environment. Is the cultivation of patience and equanimity in the face of challenges. Life inevitably brings difficulties, illness, loss, conflict, disappointment. To live as realities, but to meet them with understanding and steadiness. When faced with anger, one can pause and breathe, choosing not to react with harm. When faced with loss, one can reflect on impermanence, finding peace and acceptance, remembering the interconnected causes that led to it. In this way, each experience becomes a teacher, each challenge a chance to deepen the practice. Compassion is central to daily living of the teaching. Or to think of compassion as an ideal. It must be expressed in the way one listens, forgives, and supports others. Compassion extends not only to people but also to animals, to nature, and to all forms of life. In impermanence, living with compassion means reducing harm wherever possible, acting with a heart that seeks the well-being of all. Living the teachings daily also involves constant self-reflection. The mind is quick to judge others, observing one's own intentions, actions, and habits. Each evening, one can reflect on the day where words spoken with kindness, where actions rooted in generosity, was mindfulness present. Such reflection is not for blame but for learning more sincerely tomorrow. In this way, daily life itself becomes the ground for growth. The teachings also remind us that no moment is too small for practice. Waiting in a line, walking down a street, washing dishes, all chances to practice mindfulness, patience, presence. One does not need special conditions to live the teachings, for life itself provides everything necessary. By bringing awareness to the simplest tasks, opportunities for awakening, when the teachings are daily, they slowly reshape one's entire being. The mind becomes calmer, the heart more open, the actions more skillful. This transformation does not happen overnight, wearing away stone. Others may notice the change not because one declares oneself a Buddhist, but because one lives with greater peace, kindness, and integrity. In this way, beliefs, but as living truth expressed through every breath and every step. The path of becoming a Buddhist is not about taking on a new name or adopting an outer identity, but about walking a journey of inner transformation. And the way suffering arises continues with a commitment to cultivate compassion and mindfulness rather than cling to labels, deepens through meditation and awareness that open the mind to clarity and peace. Teachings are lived in each moment of daily life. To walk this path is to bring wisdom, kindness, and presence into the world, reducing suffering for oneself and others. In this way, they are alive in the way we breathe, speak, and act. To become a Buddhist is, in truth, to become more fully human, awake to the reality of life, and committed to walking it with compassion and peace.